Welcome to the A-Game podcast, where I help you bring your best to be your best in all areas of life: business, relationships, career, health and wellness, anywhere you want to excel. I'm your host, Steven Griffith, and today we're going to discuss the most important relationship in your life, the one you might not even be aware of. Now, you might be thinking, oh, it's probably my relationship with my spouse or kids, business partner, or even God. Those are all very important, but today we're talking about your relationship with time. You see, the relationship you have with time allows you to do, be, or have anything in your life. It also determines the quality and experience of what you're doing with time. We're going to explore how we can improve your relationship with time so you can have all the time you need for what truly matters. Not just the time, but to be present, aware, and intentional with it, what I call timefulness. Let's get started. So let's start looking at the struggle with time. If you're like most people today, you're probably in a constant battle with time, feeling like there's never enough of it, rushing to get things done, multitasking, and fighting against the clock. There's a much, much better way. So how I came to this process about being more effective with your time started several years ago when in 1 week I saw a trend that every one of my clients was saying, I just don't have enough time. And I realized even for me, I was maxed out and really rushing and fighting against time. So I decided I wanted to solve this problem. I've been a coach for over 20 years, but this was my new challenge with the clients that I had. And so I studied everything I can get my hand on: time management, Einstein's theories, performance psychology. What I saw really shocked me. The real problem was the issue wasn't a lack of time, but that most people were relying on outdated time management strategies that no longer work in today's world. Our 24/7 tech-driven environment creates an adversarial relationship with time, leading to toxic behaviors, habits, and mental patterns that steal our focus, energy, and productivity. Ultimately, I realized that with the speed that our lives are now moving, we must upgrade, evolve to keep pace with our modern world. We need to stop trying to manage time and start performing with it. And most of all, have a positive relationship with it, knowing it's actually here to serve us and help us be our full potential. You see, when you look at time management, in the Olympics, Olympic athletes, when they go to compete, they don't go to manage their performance, they go to perform with their best effort, with a supportive relationship with time. All this research and the processes that I developed culminated in the book I published with McGraw-Hill called The Time Cleanse. Did you know that the most researched self-help phrase on Google isn't about money, fitness, or even sex? It's about time, because we all want more of it and we're struggling, feeling like there's never enough of it. Time is the number one reason most people are not living their full potential. Think about it. Why are you not going to the gym? Not making more sales calls? Not dating to find the one? Not enjoying a vacation? Not volunteering? It's all about time. See, the simple fact is this. We all come into this world with a date. That's our birthday. And we're all going to leave this world with an equal and opposite day. That's the day you die. And in between those two dates on your headstone is a dash. That dash represents every moment in time, the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the good times and bad, dreams fulfilled and unfulfilled. So it's really so important to me that you understand how to maximize time for yourself. It's got one meaning for me, time. Time is for one simple thing: to create memories that matter and a legacy you're proud of. Think about your life today. Now imagine if you had all the time you wanted and needed. What could you accomplish? What if the amount of time that made a difference in your life was actually just 1 hour a day? How would you spend that time? Being with loved ones and friends, reinvesting in high-dollar business activities. Would you get fit finally? Would you quiet your mind and balancing your spirit with meditation or prayer? Reading your favorite book? Watching a movie? Starting a side hustle? Eating at a new restaurant? Even getting an extra hour of sleep? what I've seen in my life and the thousands of clients I've worked with is just 1 extra hour a day or just a better experience with time can give you the hope and happiness that you deserve versus a life where we're on a hamster wheel of stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. When you live your life in this scarcity mindset of time, you create what we call time pressure. And when this happens, our performance begins to reduce. The effects go well past our mind. They have real physiological effects. Stress hormones are released, fatigue sets in, and our productivity slows. We become less kind, more impatient, less compassionate, and life is not enjoyable. I know this for me. Before I started using these principles, the biggest impact, the performance impact was there, but I just was not as kind. I was more rushed with people. And when I started using the principles and changing my relationship with time, I was more engaged. I was more compassionate. I was just nicer to be around. So let's look at some of these revealing studies. These are studies that I wrote about in the Time Cleanse, but they show what is really going on when we're on time pressure. So the first study comes from Case Western University. His team found that perceived time pressure, not actually time constraints, can impair decisions around your performance. Now, the researchers in this group, what they did is they had 2 sets of kids in college that were going to take a math test, same math ability. They told one set that they probably didn't have enough time. And the other set, they said, hey, you got enough time, this should be really easy. And the participants who believe they lack sufficient time perform worse on tasks, regardless of the actual time they had. So that's the first study. The next one I found interesting, and this has to do with our health and fitness. And the study is called Time Pressure Satisfaction with Leisure and Health Among Australian Women. And in this study, what they found is that these women that they studied that felt rushed made really poor food choices, pretty much using fast food as their nutrient source. And when they looked at women that were satisfied with their leisure time and felt like they had enough time, they just had better health outcomes. So time pressure can affect even our health and our eating. And the last study that I wrote about, and I think this is probably one of the most impactful ones, is this study in 1959 by cardiologist Meyer Friedman and Ray Roseman. They uncovered that the type A behavior pattern, marked by excessive competitiveness, urgency, was linked to higher cholesterol, increased blood clotting, and greater prevalence of coronary artery disease. The chronic pressure, they found, can significantly harm the cardiovascular health. So these aren't just psychological effects. These are real effects that can affect our body, our mind, how long we're on this planet. So now let's look at your relationship with time. So I want you to listen to the following statements and see if they relate to you. All right, here we go. Number 1, rushed or out of control at times during the day, distracted from the tasks at hand, fatigued during or at the end of your day, worried about getting everything done, stressed out about the day, under time pressure while working, multitasking to get everything done, that your to-do list never gets completed. So that's the first set of questions. So just mentally make a note, or if you're writing these down, put a check next to those. Now, here's the next set. Do you feel in control of your day? Energized throughout the day? Focused on tasks at hand? Confident in the day and completing pretty much everything you need to do? That you have plenty of time rather than just enough time to get everything done? Calm and fulfilled at the end of the day? Mindful and present in the moment during activities? Accomplished because your to-do list is complete? So here are 2 different types of question. One shows that time is on your side. It's in your corner. It's your ally. That's what we want. The other one, if you got more check marks next to that, really is indicating that you have more of an adversarial relationship with time. Now you can have, things on both sides that you connect with, but most people in my experience doing the research have an adversarial relationship with time. Now, additionally, when you have that adversarial relationship, there's a couple other things that are happening. You're usually not present and enjoying the moment fully. You're wishing and wanting for more time. I know I've experienced that in the past. You're focusing on the lack of it. And then time becomes an easy excuse for you not to do, be, or have. I said that to begin with. That time is really the ultimate legacy builder and memory builder. And what I'm seeing so often today is that people are caught in their life between a screen, their phone, and they're missing the moments. They're missing the ability to connect and relate to people, to have the special moments, potentially to meet your husband or wife. We're so focused on our head and our face down in those phones, we're not fully present. And when you change your relationship with time and you become more present, life expands in color, connection, and meaning. So here's a question for you. Have you ever said, if time allows, or my schedule allows? You ever said that? It's a common phrase. I used to say it. And then I asked myself one simple question. Who is time? Because we talk about it like it's something outside of us. When we have an adversarial relationship with time, time can manifest as a feeling that something outside of us controlling our day. This mindset combined with general rushing activates your parasympathetic nervous system. We'll talk about the nervous system a little bit. So it raises our heart rate, our respiration. We feel rushed. Stress hormones increase. We become less patient, less compassionate, and less effective. And, I have a saying, the more present you are, the higher you perform. And being present, non-rush, positive relationship with time allows that performance to be at your best, your A game. I'm going to tell you a little story. This story is also in the Time Cleanse. It's about an executive. He's at home. It's a Sunday. He's got a lot of work to do. His son comes in, asks him, "Hey, Dad, can you come out and play catch with me?" And he kind of abruptly looks to him and said, "I really wish I could, just don't have enough time." Puts his head back down. Son goes back out to continue to play. And about 10 minutes later, his son barges into his office and says, Daddy, I cut my hand. Blood's gushing everywhere. Daddy picks him up, takes him to the hospital, stitches him up. Son's okay. But I want you to compare those two situations. I want you to think about it. Was it ever about time? The first time his son comes in, didn't have time. Second time his son came in, he had all the time in the world to take care of it. You see, it's really not about time. It's about your choices and priorities with your life and your time. We can always make the time, find the time when something's a priority. So a big part of today's episode is, to really think about what matters. And where are you spending your time? We're going to go into this a little deeper in the episode, but being present to what really matters. Because ultimately, it has nothing to do with time. It has to do with the choices that you're making. And it's really important you understand the distinction as we move forward, and that you let go of this illusion that time is something outside of you, controlling you, because it is absolutely not. Time comes from you, and you're 100% responsible for your time. We're going to talk about the time excuse diet a little bit later. So, I've got a couple action steps to put this in your life for a positive and supportive relationship with time. But before I do that, I want to give you the definition of a word that I created when I wrote the book. And it's called Timefulness. And it's a deeper relatedness to mindfulness. Mindfulness is being present in the moment, but this is related to time. So timefulness is being fully present in the moment, improving the quality, experience, and performance with your time. When you're present, you perform at your highest level, like I said before. As we get more distracted, less present, our performance goes down. So, to strengthen your relationship with time, here are these steps that you can use. Number one, decide that time is an ally and it supports you and your purpose. See, as soon as we get rid of the mindset that it's against us and that's actually here for us. I mean, why were we born? Why did you show up on this planet? You got a purpose. What's the escalator of that purpose? Time. We got a beginning date and an end date. I recently was on a podcast, the Dog Psychology Podcast. It's a great podcast. The top trainers for Cesar Millan run that podcast. And there was kind of a real emotional moment when I was talking to both of them. And I said, we talk about the dash, the beginning and the end. And I said, well, if you have an animal, that dash is real small. I mean, anywhere, depending on the breed you have, 8 to 10, 12, 14, 15 years. And that, a lot of people, are on their phone with their dog, or it's an accessory, but, that dog's life is very compressed. And, when I was researching the time cleanse, there's some research on, deathbeds, deathbeds, people dying, right? And no one on their deathbed is saying, man, I wish I had a few more minutes to jump on Instagram, see who's posting stuff. I want to get on Facebook. What's on TikTok? Man, I'm going to, that latest show on Netflix, I hope that new episode's on. No one is thinking that way. But this is where we're wasting our time. This is where we're wasting our time. So, number one, as I said, decide that time is an ally and support your purpose. Number two, this is my favorite, and this is where the rubber hits the road. Go on a time excuse diet. What does that mean? You stop using time as the excuse and start deciding, this is what I'm choosing, this is what I'm not. And man, you'll see the accountability of your life go up and your performance go up. I love the time excuse diet, so you can try that. Number three, practice being present and adopting this mindset of timefulness, present, aware, and intentional with your time. And, as we do this, we start enriching our experiences. So you can just have a timefulness break, just take a timefulness break and do some breath work, do some meditation, but just being present in the moment and practicing, leaving your technology behind. I've been recently leaving my phone behind when I go to the gym. I just ordered a flip phone. Yep, old school flip phone, no screen, so I'm not distracted by it. I want to talk about Einstein now. As I said in my research, Einstein came up in one of the really important concepts. And here his quote, "Put your hand on a hot stove for a minute, and it seems like an hour. Sit with your beloved for an hour, and it seems like a minute." That's relativity. Now, let me break this down into layman's terms. It took me a little while once I read this and really understand it. So think about our lives. Job you don't like, a bad relationship, a body that we're not happy with. The whole time we're trying to extract our mind, our energy away from it. See, this theory of relativity is fully engaging into the time and space you're in. So when we look at our beloved or something that we love, right, we're fully engaged with it and time flies. A hobby you love, a job, connecting with your loved ones. You notice how time flies. Yeah, we're fully present. Just like when we're at a bad job where everything slows, or we're in a situation that we don't like, we're trying to extract our mind, our body, and energy out of the situation. And that's when our life becomes boring and redundant. So we can change our experience with time back to that concept of being fully immersed in it. And that takes some practice. Take some practice of getting off your phone, taking some practice of be focused. So the tools that will help are, as I said, the breath work, the 4-7-8 breaths. If you listen to that, it's inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. That's a resetting technique. Either the box breathing as well, meditation, and then, just stopping and putting your phone away. These are all things that will help reset us to be in the moment. right? Because the more we're in the moment, the less we feel rushed, less there's that scarcity mindset, better relationship with time, all right? Number 6, being self-compassionate with yourself. So here's something that I introduced to this and it's really important that as we go through life, that we're actually there for ourselves. So what does being self-compassionate mean? Being there like a good friend in the face of adversity, setback, or perceived failures. That you're there for yourself. And when we do that, once again, calming our nervous system. If you notice, a lot of the things I'm talking about is activating your parasympathetic nervous system, the break, the rest and digest, the calming sense, right? And the next step here, number 7, which the whole book, The Time Cleanse, is about, is removing toxic influence. Now, I'm going to talk about it briefly. We're going to do a whole episode on this, how to cleanse your life, your business. But ultimately, we want to look at the things that are wasting our time. So how do we do that? Now, it's real simple. We start with looking with what I call time toxins. What is a time toxin? That's, anything that is taking you away from your happiness, your success, or for you to be relevant. What's relevant? Bringing your gifts and talents to the world for the need of the time. Continuing to elevate your game. So toxins can happen many places. It can be with the people you're at, the places you go, the things you're engaged with, your technology, your habits, your behaviors, your mental thoughts and emotions. Even our attitude and outlook on life can be toxic. So the time cleanse takes you in a deep dive very quickly to do this, to look at what are the things I should get rid of or potentially do with less time or change the time of the day that I'm doing. All these can create a toxic relationship that you want to adjust, right? But it's real simple. Any of those categories that I spoke to you about, just ask this simple question. It's the magic question. Is this contributing or contaminating to my happiness, success, and me being relevant? That's really where you're going to see, should I still be doing this? A lot of us are doing things because they've just been habits. And we keep doing it, it's making us less relevant to our family, to to our culture, to our business. So we really need to take a look and go, okay, what's supporting me? And a lot of it has to do with our mental and emotional patterns. Now we move on to the Q&A game with my illustrious producer, Mike Smith. What are the questions we've got today?
Well, we've got quite a few, Steven. I'd like to start with a question that's on most people's minds today. Just like that old song, Time in a Bottle from the 1970s. Why is it?
I wasn't born yet, Mike, so I'm just what this
I was born again by that time. Why is it that I never seem to have enough time to do the things I want to do? That is a common question people pose today. What do you think?
Yeah, it's the question that stimulated the writing of the Time Cleanse. It's an illusion. There is plenty of time to do what matters. I'm going to say this again. There's plenty of time to do what matters. Now, that may not include 3 hours of Netflix, 2 hours of Instagram, hanging out at the coffee shop. But when we look at our lives, and get focused on, first of all, what our purpose is, what our why is, what our values, we've got plenty of time. We do have to get rid of the toxic things, but we've got to get back into, like I talked about in the episode, having a positive relationship with time. Think about it. If you woke up and you felt like there was no food in the refrigerator, there's no food all day, you would be thinking about, where am I going to get food? When am I going to eat? It's the same with time. That's what people are doing. And they've used this old excuse, if time allows, if my schedule allows, and they have forgotten they are time. We are time by our choices of, yes, I'm going to do this. No, I'm not going to do it. So we've got to get back to the timefulness process, present, aware, and intentional with our time, be connected to our why, our purpose, and our values, and understand the simple truth. Time is here for us to maximize our potential, to be our best.
What leads people to what you were just saying, I guess I'll just call it the wasting of time. This time spent on social media, this time spent with devices. Is it just an easy default? Why does the mind automatically go to something like that rather than what you're saying, which is identifying purpose and doing things that serve that purpose with your time?
Well, a lot of people just don't know. That's why I wrote the book. So, let's continue to get the information out there for people to utilize it. And the other thing is, most people do not know how to regulate their emotions. So they're using technology to regulate their emotions. Oh, I'm stressed out. I'm going to watch Netflix. Oh, man, I just can't focus. Let me jump on Instagram. By the way, none of that's wrong. But if that's your default over and over, now the tech companies love that because they just got you hooked in. But learning how to breathe, learning how to disconnect from the day, being in nature, meditating, these are all things that regulate our nervous system and then get us back in charge for what matters. As I said, no one on their deathbed is going, man, if I could just see one more episode of Landman, I would just, I could just go off into the transition, No one's saying that.
That's true. And Billy Bob is not going to lead me to my transition. Another question. When I'm getting calls and texts and emails all day long, how can I possibly focus on what's happening right now? It seems to me that life and the life that I'm living is eating up my time, and it's just happening.
Yeah, people are allowing interruptions, of course. If you've got every ding, ring, bing on your phone open or on your computer, you're in a constant state of cortisol stimulation, stress. Could you imagine, football season, we're going into the playoffs. Could you imagine a guy on either one of the side, they line up and they got their phone. So down in the three-point stance, and they're like, hey, hold on a second here. This is for the game. I got a text message. It would never happen.
Right.
We're all in our own game. It's what we're doing. It's when I get in my car, when I'm walking around, my head's on a swivel now because people are just addicted to it all. So, couple strategies, shutting off the instant notifications, right? And organizing our days where, hey, this is an hour where I'm going to be uninterrupted. Everything's shut off. I'm just totally focused. We've got to start taking back our time and not allowing, all these distractions to steal it. And the major one, it's not the only one, is the interruption of technology.
Mm. You were talking about being in another country. And how walking down the street became a trial and tribulation for you because of how many people were just looking down at a device as they're walking down a city street.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Yeah, well, so, I've traveled to Japan quite a bit. I was there a couple months ago. I hadn't been in a couple years since COVID. And when I was in Japan this time, they're always, the Japanese in general, always a little bit further ahead on the technology and use. Mm-hmm. There was an area, though, it was kind of an open market, tourist area as well, where 90% of the people were either FaceTiming and walking, were taking pictures, or were interacting. And I literally was just weaving through people. I felt like I was on another planet.
Until you finally said, I'm done weaving.
I was just like a steamroller, just knocking people down. No.
Well,
but I did realize how it was like mentally really bothering me. And I get it, we can get caught in the moment, and people are doing the best they can. And like, there was no connection to other people.
Mm-hmm. I actually had a friend say this to me the other day, and this is a quote. He said, sometimes I feel like I'm whitewater rafting through my day, getting swept away by the rapids, just of the day-to-day machinations. How do I get off that raft without drowning in the water?
Well, it's the same thing. Your friend is pretending that he has no control, first, getting on the river, second, that he's in a raft. Mm-hmm. See, it feels like, oh, this is happening to me. It's not. You're creating it. But the machine is manipulating us to, once again, jump on Instagram, look at the news, worry, doubt, and fear. Like, I always got to be connected. To what? What possibly is going to, I mean, how did we live a life 40 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's this fear of missing out, isn't it? I'm missing something if I'm not constantly on my device.
yeah, you're missing your life. It's what you're missing out on.
Right.
You're so connected to what other people are doing or what other people want. And once again, I don't want to over-exaggerate because technology is awesome if we control it and not let it control us. I mean, it's changed our lives. I've got all the devices, but I've got to pay attention. I mean, I recently just took Instagram off my phone. I had first set a timer, and then I noticed when the timer would go off, you have this little button that says, give me 4 or 5 more minutes. And I was like 50-50 on that. Finally, I said, why do I have it on my phone? And I took it off recently, and it's fascinating. The first couple days, I would reach for my phone and try to go to the app. That's how programmed. Now it's, but my time, I mean, I use Instagram for our work. I think it's great to connect with people and if you use it correctly. But man, probably an hour a day I got back.
That's amazing. It kind of leads me to, to this next question, which is, I'm going to assume that performing with time or managing time or using time productively requires at least some preparation. You were talking about turning off your Instagram. What's a good way to set up my day so that I am more present?
Well, first of all, it's understanding, I have a completing the day worksheet. It's actually in the time cleanse. We can post it on the show notes where you're looking at what you're doing the next day. What are the 3 focuses? What are the tools I'm going to use? Scheduling the day, clustering similar activities. These are all things that I cover in the book. But you have a plan. Most people don't have a plan, or the plan is so generalized that it's not really, aligned. And then secondarily, they don't have what I call a reset strategy. Everybody's day is going to be taken off track. And I want to tell you a quick story. So years ago, the LAPD hired me to come in and help their 911 operators to be more focused, perform better, be less stressful. And this is the old days. So the 911 operators were like 8 floors below the sea level, right? So I get in there, first day I get in there, and get in the elevator, and you go down, there's no windows, and it's just depressing. And so they had this kind of conference safe room we were going to use, but for some reason, the mayor had an emergency meeting, so they needed to use it. And they said, hey, Steven, do you want to plug in on the calls to kind of get a feel?
Oh, how interesting. That's great.
So I was like, yeah, of course I do. So first person I got was like a veteran, 15 years. And the first thing I realized, I'm like, oh my God, 8% of all calls to 911 are not emergencies.
Yeah.
I mean, just everything you can imagine. Lost my keys, cat in a tree, I can't find my, I mean, you can't even imagine. And so an operator has to be still present that when they do get that, 2%, they're going to react, right? So advanced person, younger person, jump on that. And I was like, oh, thank God, I got to change my whole program here. Like, some of it, but now I really got to feel. And one of the biggest issues from morale perspective is the constant complaining. All these people, they call, and it's not an emergency.
Constant complaining by the
operators.
Okay.
That, all these calls are not emergency. And I finally said to them, what's the benefit of complaining about something you know is going to happen? And you could just hear a pin drop. 7, 8, 9 out of 10 are not going to be emergency. So why are you not being accountable for your emotional state to just go, yeah, that's part of my job? Now it becomes this excuse for being in a bad mood. This job sucks. It's almost like the time excuse, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just going to have an excuse of time.
Or to commiserate with others. Is it a way that they thought they were building a team? We have common complaints, common interests.
Well, yeah.
We have a bond.
If we're not evolving our consciousness, we're going to go to the lowest common denominator. Gossiping, focusing on the negative. And so there was a real aha moment of, yeah, this is part of your job. Don't let it take you down.
How did they react? Did they start to accept that? Or maybe you weren't there
Well,
for
first
the
of all,
follow-up?
guns came out to begin with.
Guns,
So
all right,
when
well,
people came
there you
in.
go.
No, at first they were kind of like, what? And they were open because they wanted to have a better work experience.
Sure.
They wanted to be more efficient. I have a much greater appreciation, always been supportive of the Blue. And now, just that team and understanding what they have to go through, much more compassion for that job because it is not easy.
It's a tough job, yeah. You referred a couple of times to your book, The Time Cleanse. Give us some background on it. Why did you write it, and what is the central message we're talking about with The Time Cleanse?
Well, I wrote it because just at a personal level, I was being affected by it, but how I saw that first was my clients. Several years ago, like every single client, not taking vacations, grinding themselves. And I started looking at, why is this still happening? We've got technology. The cell phone was supposed to free ourselves up. It's made it worse. And that's why I just really dug in and looking at all the old concepts, right? And those old concepts may have worked 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? But they certainly weren't working. And they were all based on managing something. There was no concept of how you can expand the performance with an hour. It was just like, we've got these hours, we're moving these hours around, and it was fixed and unchangeable. An hour is not fixed and unchangeable. As I talked about Einstein, the more we engage, the more we're focused, the more we're present, our performance goes up. Out of dozens of books on time management, there was not one sentence on that. Not one. And then we look at the relationship with time. Not one book that I read, not one, talked about the relationship with time. I don't know if my book is the first one on it, but no one talked about an adverse relationship and how that affects your performance. Mm-hmm. And so that's the background why I wrote it, and just really giving people cutting edge tools to get rid of the toxic behaviors, which can be mental, emotional, habits, people, the places, the things. It's a very clear and concise. To do the cleanse, it takes you about 1 hour, and the average person gets between 1 and 3 hours back a day. And most of the time when I go in to do corporate trainings or work with people, they're like, there's just no way. And like an hour later, they got a sheet that says, I got 20 hours back in a week. Because we're also becoming disconnected to the reality of how, like I said with my Instagram, how long I'm on there. 15 minutes on Instagram goes like that because our brain goes into a trance. And when our brain's in a trance, our concept of time is gone.
So when you talk about these other books that are about managing time, it sounds like you're trying to ride a bucking bronco or something, and you're going to get thrown off, and people fear it almost, fear how they're using time or not using time properly. I think what you're saying is you can calm the horse down and get on and ride it productively.
Yeah, and also have a relationship with the horse. See, all those old time management books says nothing about the relationship with time.
Right.
And just that what happens is time pressure actually goes up.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how to change the performance with time, right? An hour present, fully engaged, knowing, hey, time is on my side, right? Changes everything.
Yeah. Those books that I've read present time as a problem that we need to get our hands around. Your book is about time as an opportunity to take things further, to take your life further.
So you're 100% right. I'll go back to the dash. Why did we show up on this planet? Why are we here, right? And it's a question that I'm continuing to ask myself, and I ask all my clients, why are we here? Because we have a finite amount of time. So it's an interesting thing. We both waste time, and then feel like we got all the time in the world. Like, I'll get it tomorrow, right? There's a reason why there's a beginning date and an end date. Because imagine if there wasn't. Just imagine we show up on this earth and there's no end. You and me would probably be in bed, right? Not in bed, but
hopefully not together.
But we would just be like, I'll get it tomorrow. Not really thinking like I need to do it today. Right. But there is a beginning and an end.
There's a finite amount of time.
And in that, we have the opportunity to be our full expression. As I've said many times, this is from my mentor, Tom Knowles, Maharishi Tom Knowles. We're here to be relevant. And that means connecting to our gifts and talents for the need of the time, for what's out there. If we're not present, we're always rushing, we'll never consider, what should I be doing? If you're doing the same thing fundamentally 5 years ago that you're doing today, you are not as relevant. I could shrink that time even to a year because the way AI and things are moving, we want to look at what are my gifts and talents? How can I create something new? How can I be in this space? In the Vedics, there's 3 positions that we operate from: destruction operator, maintenance operator, creation operator. And what it means simply, Tom taught me this as well, is that if we're not creating more relevance, so relevance means creation operator, we're creating. The ideal place is to go from maintenance to creation, maintenance to creation. Like, we can't always be creating, and it's different percentages in different parts. It could be health, we're at 50%, but here's the problem. When we're not paying attention to what we're doing with our time, and we're in maintenance operator, and it's what we call the always repeatable known, we start moving into the destruction operator. And that's when you are going to pay the price. You're going to pay the price because the universe or the world is going to impose whatever it's going to impose because we weren't paying attention and elevating.
I'm in the production business, and I work with a lot of producers who are well known for having to multitask.
Right.
Now, that's part of that job. And I think it's been expanded out to a feeling on everybody's part that they must multitask in order to be successful through their day.
Yeah.
What are they missing? What's the better way?
Well, it's an illusion. I'll start with that. So multitasking is really task switching. A, B, C, D. So we got to kind of understand that we're actually switching our focus. We're not doing it at the same time. Like if you're riding a stationary bike and listening to an audiobook, that is multitasking. But we got the concept, right? And I think you can multitask effectively. In the book, I talk about mindfully multitasking. Mm-hmm. That would mean low-value activities, right, that don't have big consequences. You're talking to your brother, you're folding clothes, you're organizing your desk, you're doing some low-level activities. Mm-hmm. I think, set a timer, knock out 30 minutes or an hour of that. It's awesome. The problem is when it becomes a way of being, where I'm on the phone and I'm driving my car, okay? No judgment, but we know from research after research, driving your car while you're talking is the equivalent of having a drink or two in reaction time. Not holding your phone, and I know
which is even worse.
Yeah,
right?
I know it's legal, but that's a form of not being present. The problem is where we think that it doesn't matter. Now we start missing moments that matter. Your kid's ball game, your daughter's event, being with a loved one, and we're multitasking. We're creating a brain pattern that becomes a way of being that, quite frankly, allows us to miss things that matter. And remember, time is for one thing, to create memories that matter and a legacy you're proud of. So the more you're multitasking, it's just can be something that can take over your life. Now, I get certain jobs may require that. That's okay. Just don't let it be your life.
Right. I've had people say to me many times, I perform best under pressure. That's, when I'm under time pressure, when I'm on a deadline in my business, that's when people say, that's when I'm really at my best. Yeah. True? Illusion? Nonsense? Real?
So it's like anything. Levels of stress, like a good amount of a little bit of stress. Pressure, is related to an outcome with time. Stress is just can't do it in general. But now we have an element of time in the outcome, like a big outcome, right? So it's like the RPM gauge on a car or a truck. There is we're idling, we're warming up, we're in what I call that A game zone, like that sweet spot of power, and then we get into the red zone, right? Any car that you run in the red zone for a period of time is going to blow up. Something's going to happen. So some pressure, some stress is perfect. The point is, most people don't even know what that is. They're in the red zone. And they realize they're in the red zone when they got acid reflux, where they just, cut somebody off and had a nasty exchange, or they're rude, so a lot of times our symptoms start showing up and like, oh, wait a second. Or somebody says, hey, you're a little short with me. So some pressure, it's the ability to use that, in the most positive way. And so the athletes that I work with, the juniors all the way to the professionals, one of the main things for them is having the tools to control time. When things speed up, our performance usually goes down. Now, they can feel sped up when we're in the zone, but if we're just like, oh my God, performance is going to start going down. So the tools to regulate how the perception of time, that puts us more in control.
So time pressure doesn't have to be a bad thing. You just have to be aware of it
100%.
and use it productively and properly.
Yeah, just using that RPM. Am I in the red zone? Am I in the green? Am I in the yellow?
Cool. All right. In your lectures and in your book and in your workshops, you talk about the time excuse diet. First of all, what is it and how does it play itself out?
So the time excuse diet is the ultimate game changer, ultimately. Because I have people do like a week, 14 days, 21 days, and what it is that for that period of time, they cannot use the excuse of time. And it becomes that it's about choices, priorities, and values. So that we're not saying, I didn't do X because of time. I didn't do X because I chose to do A, B, and C instead. There's such a default,
So taking responsibility for how you have used your time.
100% responsible for the time in your life.
Yeah.
We've all heard this. Oh, I was super busy. That's why I didn't call you back. All they're saying is you are not important. So every time I hear that, I'm like, And at times when people say that, I go, you just insulted me. And they're like, well, I didn't mean that. I go, but you see, you have to understand what you're saying.
Or if they're late for a meeting or late to come to your house or something, you're not important.
Yeah. Listen, life shows up, right? I'm not walking around with, hey, and actually, it's interesting when writing the book, there's the, I was much more focused on like time and being on time and people. And it actually gave me a little bit more freedom, just saying, hey, you know what? People are stressed out. I don't have to be as militaristic around scheduling on time. So that was a positive benefit for me.
Right. Opened your mind a little bit. Tell me one thing. This is a hard, sort of boiling it down. Tell me one thing I need to know about time in order to help me believe that I can control it rather than it controlling me. So what is one thing, and maybe it's two things, that I need to know about time and how I manage it or how I approach it in order for me to believe that it's not controlling me, that I can control it?
Well, first of all, you got to ask yourself, who is time?
Who is time?
Who is time? So just the fact of the question of that time isn't, just that, the presupposition is that it's something outside of me. So the real answer to that is understanding your expression of time is by your choices. And if you feel like you've regulated your nervous system, you've aligned your values and your purpose, you've removed most of the toxins in your life, there's plenty of time. There's not one person in thousands that I've worked with where I've said, yep, they got me. They just don't have enough time. Now, back to there's time for what matters. If somebody wants just to keep adding stuff in that doesn't matter, it's like, I work 12 hours, but I want to watch 4 hours of Netflix. Yes, quote unquote, there will not be time. But that doesn't matter.
Right. Take me through your day. You talk about needing to be aware of time, that it is you are time. It's not something outside you. So So take us through how you spend and or plan and or prepare to use your time
Sure.
to its fullest.
So I'll use a concept from the book, and then I'll talk about my day. So I break the day into three parts: the prep, the perform, and the recover. So the prep is actually the night before. What am I going to do the next day? So I'll pick three top priorities, and then some sub things I'll do under that. But the brain likes threes. Brain likes three. Then in the morning, I already know what my day is going to be. And let me just say for the record, I'm not perfect. I'm a human just like everyone. But the more I do this, the more I perform. So I'll get up, I'll meditate. So meditate's been part of my life for 15 years. That's a non-negotiable.
In the morning, you do that?
In the morning, get up, have some water, feed the dog, meditate, work out, and then get to my day. Now, my day's already scheduled. And in that schedule, I like to cluster, okay, if I'm going to see clients, here's a couple hours of clients. If I'm going to work on some writing, here's a couple hours of writing, right? In there'll be some time for, a break, walking outside with the dog. There'll be a break. I'll set up my day doing like intervals like you would do in the gym. 30 minutes of focused work, 10 minutes off, or 55 minutes and 10 minutes off, where I'm doing intervals. No distractions, just focused on that.
And this has been planned the night before, you said?
Correct. And also, allowing for changes. Like here's my, creating some space for changes. People get in trouble when they pack a day. Mm-hmm. One thing goes off the rest of the day unless they know how to reset correctly, right? And so work through my work day. And then here's where it's real important, especially for entrepreneurs like yourself and mine, and even, executives. There's got to be a shut off. There's got to be at some point that day gets shut off from work.
That's a big one.
Because otherwise, nothing ends. And man, I'm still working on this because I'll get an idea. It'll be 7. Like, let me look this up. And now it's 8:30.
I'm with you 100%. And shutting off sometimes feels like I'm not using my time properly because I shut off.
Right. And so having that shut off, right? Now, when the day shut off, there's a sweet spot where I call the after or the recovery. Here's where most people waste so much time. People say they don't have enough time. So let's say there's a 9 to 5er, right? So we'll say from 5, I'm going to make it up till 11 o'clock. Say you go to bed at 11, people get up at 5 or 6. There is a sweet spot of hours in there that people waste. This is one of the most important times, so that you finish work and you've got, I'm going to make this up, 6 hours. Most people are just
before you go to bed.
Yeah.
Just veg out on the couch or something.
Man, an hour of research on something, practicing music, listening to music, researching, writing, working out.
A hobby.
Exactly. An hour or two after work. In a year, you could be a subject matter expert on something at a beginning level. You could master something. But this is where I'm tired. Why are you tired? Because you're under time pressure. Your cortisol has raised up. You haven't reset. You're not using the parasympathetic nervous system tools. So if you're using those tools at the end of the day, you might have a little rest time, but you still got energy. You still got energy. And so, and then, you're filling out your end of the day worksheet, which I talked about to begin with, and then getting on a good sleep routine. That's really important. Sleep is the biggest lever. I was talking about this 25 years ago before there was any research on it. I always ask my clients, starting 25 years ago, what's your sleep like? And now, thank God, we've got all this research and there's all this, it's $1 billion, industry about sleeping. But sleeping, regular time to go to bed, regular time to wake up, dark, cool environment.
Are you talking about quality of sleep, length of sleep,
both,
or both?
The quality, but we really just want to get a good sleep routine. Sleep, we'll do a whole episode on that. Biggest lever we can change our performance with.
Because it does what?
Allows our whole body to recover, our mind, our body, and spirit.
It's cleansing, isn't it?
Yeah. So some final thoughts from today's episode. Time is our most valuable, precious, and limited commodity, but we make the mistake of throwing it away, not protecting it, pretending it's unlimited, and we treat it as if it is the same as any other commodity, but it is not. We can, however, change how we use it, with whom and where we spend it. But once we run out, there's no way to get more time. It's game over. Your relationship with time is the most powerful relationship you have. It allows you to do, be, and have the things that are most important to you. By shifting to timefulness, you can unlock your full potential. So it's important that you reflect on your relationship with time and look at it this week. I hope the things that I shared with you today will change your relationship with time. Make those small changes to become more present and intentional. And if you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could benefit. Helping you and your friends and your loved ones reach your full potential is what this show is all about. So thanks for joining in, and until next time, protect your time, perform with it, and always remember to bring your A game.